Still to come on Fox 5, talking about race is important, especially in these tough times. Pastor Miles McPherson tells us how to make it easier to have that uncomfortable conversation. Former and current athletes are now sharing their own messages of support for the Black community. Joining us now, Pastor and former Charger Miles McPherson. Miles, always good to see you.
How you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Athletes, what they say, how they say it, why they say it, it really connects with a lot of people, especially people who look up to them. What did you think about Bree's statement when you heard it?
Well, the first statement, I didn't agree. I thought it represented a blind spot he had about what the issue is. I am encouraged by his steps forward. I've known Drew for 20 years or however long since he's been drafted. He's a stand-up guy. He will do the right thing. And I think it's going to be a model for a lot of people who say the wrong thing or don't understand what's going on. It's like this, Charlie. It's like a house being on fire, and there's a guy trying to put his fire out, and all the neighbors are just watching, saying, and he's trying to get everybody's attention to help him put the fire out, and no one's paying attention. And then finally, the guy throws a rock and hits the guy and said, "Look, can you help me?" This is what's going on, is that the Black community, we've dealt with racism for hundreds of years, and it's finally now people are seeing the house is burning down. But we've been crying and crying and crying, and I'm excited now. I'm hopeful that more and more people are acknowledging that the house is burning and that they're going to get involved in trying to put the fire out, because people are dying in the house.
There's some people who have an opinion. They know what their opinion is. There are others who are learning. And there are some who are just uncomfortable, Pastor Miles, to just talk about it. How do you talk about it? What do you say to people who are uncomfortable? They don't know if they're going to say the right thing. They don't want to hurt someone's feelings, and they may not share the same opinion as many.
Yeah, I wrote a book called The Third Option, and there are a couple of chapters in there about having conversations with people. And one of them is called having race consultations. And I have to give you a little context. We all see color, and we should never say we don't see color, because we do. The only times we say we don't see it is when we see it and don't want to talk about it. But when you see someone, you have these automatic responses in your brain about, what they look like, what they may be like, by the way they dress, their color of the skin, their accent. And we should take those assumptions and set them aside and have a race consultation. Let people disclose to you who they are, what they believe, instead of making prejudgments. There's another chapter called My Brother's Keeper. There are people in our family that make comments, have views, and we should always test those comments, challenge those comments by saying, how many people like that do you really know? How many experiences like that have you really had? Are you making that comment based on firsthand experience? So we can start with the people, our friends and family, by challenging the comments of the people in our own life before we start going out into the public.
You say that there are 3 different kinds of racism. What are they? What is the difference between the 3 in your opinion?
Well, 3 or 4. There's institutional, which are systems that hold people down. There's personally mediated racism, where it's me to you. I don't like you, or I have something against you. Then there's internalized, where you start to believe, what you've been told. When I was growing up, and this didn't hit me till I saw George killed. When I saw George killed, something triggered in me after 60 years of thinking about this and living it, that I have lived with this sense of powerlessness. It was that key word, powerless. When George was killed, it sent many messages, but one of them was that Black people are powerless to white people, and I grew up feeling this sense of powerlessness over my life. And if you internalize that powerlessness, you start to live it out, and you start to have a self-fulfilled prophecy. Institutional racism are the systems, the criminal justice system, which is a multi-billion-dollar business made in the backs of prisoners, most of which are Black and brown people. And so those are systems. People need to, and again, this is the house that's on fire, that many people don't know that it's burning. And if white people can use their power to bring the hose over to the house and put the fire out, and we can work together, that's the only way it's going to happen. When the lady in New York called the police because the guy was telling her to put a dog on the leash, I think many people saw that. All she had to do was say, a Black man is harassing me, or whatever her word was, and the police come. That's power. White people need to know they have more power than people of color. That's why this racism works. But if they can say, I'm going to use my power to fight it, I'm going to get educated about it, I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to get in the fight to eradicate it from the country, that's the only way it's going to go away.
There are many people, Pastor Miles, who believe that they're not racist. They may say things, though, that may hurt, and they may be insensitive to others. How do you express your opinions, even though you feel, because I was just telling some friends earlier, everybody's really sensitive right now. And this is really pushing buttons of a lot of people. And not everybody agrees. Not everybody agrees.
We live in an us versus them culture, and you feel like you have to be on one side or the other. And that's why this book's called The Third Option. The third option is that we honor what we have in common. And one of the things that we have in common is that we're all on a journey. We're all learning. And if we can go into every conversation realizing that we have blind spots, there's things about the issue, there's things about ourself, there's things about our perception that we don't know. You can be racially offensive and not necessarily be a racist. What I mean by that is that you don't have to be thinking, I hate black people, white people, Hispanic people, and to be offensive. You can actually say, I love people, but you can still be offensive. And I think if you come into conversations with humility, not trying to defend yourself, but with a humble heart that's willing to listen, learn, and love. And if we say, listen, I want to love you better, the only way I can love you better is to really learn how to love you better. How am I not loving you better? And the only way I can do that is if I listen. And one of the things you could ask your friends is there something I say that's offensive? Is there something I do that's offensive? And humbly receive it. Humbly ask and humbly receive, so you can learn, instead of coming into every conversation thinking or trying to be like you know everything. Just come and say, tell me what I don't know. And then humbly learn. It's uncomfortable, especially for white culture who hasn't had to deal with it like now, where people of color had to deal with it every single day. So it is uncomfortable. I get it. But welcome to the club. I hate to say it, but let's have those conversations. And there's got to be people in your life, hopefully, that are people of color that you are friends with, that you can say, hey, educate me. Though that's where it has to start. If you have no relationships, there lies a big problem right there. And so start by listening, learning, and loving.
I so appreciate you in my life. I could talk to you all day, all day. You have a way of talking that just makes me, Pastor Miles, always good to see you.
Thank you. And I would also like to ask the city to continue to pray for Leslie Furcron, who was shot in LeMay. We need to pray for her healing, speedy recovery.
Always good to see you, Pastor Miles.
Thank you.